It's never a waste of time to make time for the truth. A moment spent listening and paying attention to the truth can change your life. So let's take a moment for the truth. Psalms 119:59 says, I consider my ways and turn my feet to your testimonies. Call it an intersection. For some it comes in a crisis of faith. For others it's a moment of clarity. In Luke 15, Jesus told 3 parables: a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son. The last of these 3 is known as the prodigal son. The intersection of the son's life in the third story comes in verse 17, where it says, But when he came to his senses. The young man had had an epiphany, a moment of clarity. His mind and his senses caught up with his situation. For the first time in quite some time, he took inventory of his life and he realized things had to change. He was going in the wrong direction. This is the testimony that we find in today's verse. It says, I considered my ways. C.H. Spurgeon, speaking of this verse, said, Consideration is the commencement of conversion. First we think, and then we turn. If you remember, the focus of this section of verses involves taking hold of God. The application of this verse seems clear. The writer is confessing that he has reached a point in his life where he had a moment of clarity. He stops and takes account of his ways. He inventoried the way he was living in such a way that he came to a conclusion. His life was going in the wrong direction. He needed to change. He turned his feet. His feet were taking him down a certain path, and it obviously was the wrong way. That's why he stopped and decided on a change. He turned around. We call this repentance. He turned his feet in the opposite direction. The verse says that he turned his feet to the testimonies of God. The word testimonies speaks of God's commands that witness to his character. In other words, he knew what God was like because what God had said in his commands. And like the prodigal, he knew his way home to the Father. As it says in the parable, in my Father's house. The contrast is clear and unambiguous. Perhaps you've had such a moment in your life. I know I have. I remember it vividly. I knew I needed a change. I came to the point where I was exhausted of the road I was on. I remember coming to myself and I remember the relief of surrender. I also remember the Lord welcoming my surrender with his love. There's an old hymn titled Softly and Tenderly. The words say, Oh, for the wonderful love he has promised for you and for me. Though we have sinned, he has mercy and pardon for you and for me. Come home, you who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, O sinner, come home. If you need to come to yourself, there's no time like the present. It only takes a moment, but it'll be a moment that will matter. Thanks for watching and listening to Truth Matters Moment. Also, don't forget to look for our weekly podcast called Truth Matters. It comes out every Wednesday. Catch you later.